Stash your worries at the Craftstache store. Let's craft and laugh till we can't anymore.
So, hello and welcome back to the Craftstache. Today I'm joined by my lovely co hosts. We have Laura, our content queen, and Sarah, our idea engineer. And then I'm Justy. So, hi. Um, Today we're going to discuss craft shows, craft markets. How do you get into the craft market? Where do you start? So, I know that this is something that both Laura, Sarah, and I a little bit, I've helped with craft shows. I've never actually ran one from my own booth, have a good amount of interest in. So, I guess let's start off in how do you find a market?
So I think one of the things that we should probably touch on is the difference between the smaller markets and then when you're getting into the larger like craft shows. So like in my area, we have several very large every year for a million years shows. Like there's one called the Allentown Art Show that draws a massive amount of talent and a massive crowd. But the challenge with something like that is that they want you to prove, they want pictures of your spot operational. They want you to prove, your receipts because they want to know that you're quality and you're not just brand new to it. But then there are the million other options, which are, church show. Most churches run shows, fairgrounds. There's, even something like flea markets, if you have a local flea market. But getting into the smaller shows is the way to not only just establish yourself so you can get into the bigger shows, but also to grow those networks of the other people doing this, and really learn the do's and do nots of it so that you're not making the mistakes on your, when you get into those bigger shows, because of course, the bigger the show, the more expensive it is to get into, right? So, you know, it's better to make those mistakes early on.
Yeah, you said something important too, which is that like a lot of the bigger shows want pictures of what your booth is going to look like. So I feel like even if you like have a local church that does like a small like craft fair or something that you can get in on, just get in and do a booth so that you can get pictures of your setup, so you can like even if you literally did like a flea market or something just to get pictures of your setup and try it out and just have those pictures in a folder somewhere or try out different setups that you can experiment with. That way you have those things so that when you are trying to get in a better, well, not a better one necessarily, but a bigger craft fair, you have it. You already have that stuff ready to go.
Yeah, and if you're not, and if you're not sure, where do I start? Where do I find one? They're everywhere. Go on to Facebook, literally type in, craft shows near me. And what'll
Yeah.
happen is they'll all come up. And then what you do, it's very simple. Every single one of them on their little infographic will have who to contact.
Mm-hmm.
The better ones will tell you how much the booth is. And some booths, I mean, you can get some spots for $10, but some are going to be, I mean, some can be thousands of dollars to get into, but the vast majority of smaller ones, you're looking at, 10, 25, maybe $50. $50 would be a lot for one of the smaller shows to get into. Most of them are $10, $25. And then a lot of them will expect you to give something to the show. Whether it be a basket or a single item or something like that, that they raffle off at the end. But that's, and then what happens, and this is really weird, it's a weird phenomenon, but what happens is once you get into one or two shows, you just get invited to others. It's very, very, I don't know why it happens that way,
You're
but
in the club.
yeah,
In the
exactly.
club, we all fam.
Um, but then of course, there's a lot of things to consider when you're thinking about getting into a show. Some are going to be indoor, some are going to be outdoor, and there's, and something else I want to point
Thank you
out
for the
is
fall
that
over chair. She's so
when
excited.
when you're thinking about getting into a show, there's two different types. Some have an entry fee for your customers and some do not. Some people prefer the ones with an entry fee. I personally prefer ones without, because I think you're going to get a
Yeah.
much more diverse crowd without an entry fee. But then what I was going to say is indoors and outdoors, you're dealing with different issues. When you're dealing with an outdoor show, there's just so much that, you're dealing with the elements, you're dealing with wind, sun, rain. And, if you've ever gotten rained out in a show or gotten a real bad windstorm, the horrific
It's
situation that
bad.
comes from. And when you can get tents and you can get tie downs for the tents, but even with that, it's a little bit more challenging. But of course, a lot of the really really big shows are outdoors. So
Is
uh,
it worth even going if it's gonna rain or if it's gonna be windy? Like, are you still making sales if the
I,
weather is kind of crap?
I would if I knew even like probably 60% that it was going to be bad, I wouldn't go. Even if I'd already paid for it. I mean, and in honesty, even if you hadn't paid for it, it's kind of your responsibility to pay for it regardless if you go or not. Because the show is
Yeah.
depending on that money. So
I would say
um,
if it's going to ruin your product, don't go.
yeah, that too.
But if it's not going to ruin your product, my personal opinion is maybe go and like make a little vlog out of it and post it. Like that could be a fun little piece of content too, which is a whole other side of craft fairs to talk about, which is that they make really good content, which is obviously that's not the purpose of going to a craft fair, but it is a good side effect of going to a craft fair, which is to show your people like we out here, we're doing stuff, we're here.
Right,
And so to have a disaster happen and to be able to capture it and be like, this was not as planned.
right.
That those kinds of things, it's like kind of a making lemonade out of lemons situation. So if you've already paid the entry fee and it's not going to ruin your product, just go make a fun video out of it, and then you still get something. You still get something out of it.
Yeah,
You
That would
I
be my
agree
probably
on that.
recommendation.
Yeah,
you probably
because
build
his
better
content is king, and I
relationships.
mean everybody out there is a content creator these days, right? So go to your show, get rained out, make a video of it, put it
Yep.
on TikTok, let it go viral, right? Of all your
Yeah.
stuff flying up in the air.
Yes, exactly.
Something that's another market that is sometimes overlooked, and I don't know if this is large in you guys' areas, but in my area, there are a million not craft, but co-op antique barns. So,
Mhm.
and when you hear antique barn, they're not really antiques; they're just
No.
hodgepodge shops, right? So whatever you're selling, they usually allow. But those are also a very good option. Um, and there's, another thing, you would just go onto Facebook or even go onto Google and type in, co-op in my area. And
Is
essentially a
there
co-op, all that means is that there's two different ways it can go. Some of them buy your merchandise and give you a smaller amount, and then they sell it for profit. But most of them are, you're going in there and you're renting the space.
Yeah.
is Is there a place, because I know we had talked before about like you sell the appropriate items to where you're at, but is there a place to sell like the more adult things, like the funnier things, the more tongue in cheek things? Because I feel like I
That's
see those at craft shows and it's immediately like, I can't believe that they came here with that quote. And it's like, there's got to be a market for those people too, though.
That's
yeah.
like the market that I sent you that we
Oh,
saw.
we're going to that one. So that's
We
fine.
are going to that one. So, Sarah, I sent her this was it a TikTok or a reel? I don't remember anymore. But anyway, I sent her this TikTok video of a market that is in, where is it? It's in I'm sure it's in California. I think it's in California.
I think the challenge with stuff like that, if it's not a dedicated market, is that, well, two things. I mean, the people who are running the market could potentially say, "Yeah, you really can't have this here."
Yeah.
You also, like I said, you don't want to offend other vendors. So and that's another thing I wanted to touch on is, those other vendors at the show. That's your key to getting into other shows, right? That's how it happens, is by making friends with those people and networking with them. So you got to be real careful you're not offending them. But of course, also you don't want some parent walking by with their 5-year-old kid who can read and being like So
Yes.
I don't know. That's tough. Maybe you could have like a behind the screen, 18 and over.
I know, like that is kind of weird. You got to really know your audience for some of these things, but yeah, maybe if you have explicit merch, maybe craft fairs are not your ideal market. I think online would be maybe your more ideal market.
Probably, yeah.
Something that I learned early on is because my first show, like I had no idea what to bring with me. And I'll tell you, the number one thing that you need to bring with you when you go to a craft show is a friend. You don't realize till you get there the amount of times it is so incredibly difficult to be there by yourself and be like, you know, I have to use the bathroom or I need some water right now. You know what I'm saying? And then what are you gonna do? You're gonna pack everything up. or you're just gonna, ask the guy next to you that you don't know, hey, can you watch my spot? I mean, can you take money for me? So bringing somebody else with you is really key to a good show.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yes. And also make friends with the people in the booths next to you because you're talking about getting into future craft fairs and stuff. I feel like some of my most successful experiences just learning about other craft fairs that are going on has been when I'm working one and I'm just kind of chatting with the people next to me and they're like, "Oh, well, we just signed up for this one." And I'm like, "Oh, well, tell me about that." I mean, you're sitting there next to these people for hours. So, make a buddy, make a friend. They're a captive audience. They're stuck there with you. So I think like it's a good time for them to tell you about other shows that they're doing and you guys to discuss what's working for you, what's not working for you, and you guys can kind of help each other out.
Yep. Absolutely. And they can tell you, they can tell you if they have done this show, over here years prior,
Yeah,
don't
if it
get this
works.
spot, don't go, this spot, nobody goes over there, whatever have you.
Yeah, or even just if it was a good show for them. Because I think like we were, very early on, we were talking about some of the bigger shows and some of the not bigger shows. It's easy to fall into the trap of being like, oh, that's a huge show. I have to get into that one. It's going to be a good one. Well, not necessarily. I mean, sometimes it's like you kind of have to know if your people are there. It's like you might pay $200+ for your booth at this fair. And it's like, are your people actually there? And are they there to buy your thing? It's like a friend of mine and we sell a blind date with a book, and so our people are women almost always, almost exclusively. So like we want to be at shows where it's like it's women buying stuff. So farmers markets and stuff are good, but that's really not like our ideal because that's more family oriented. So we're always looking for like a place where it's primarily women there to shop. And so some of these like massive shows, it is worth it for us because that's who's going to those, right? They're paying a ticket, but they're there to buy. But that's not always the case. So I think like don't fall into the trap of thinking that just because it's an expensive ticket and it's a big show that it's the one you have to be at because that's not always true.
Yep. And you also have to figure that a lot of these, I've made really, really good money on some of the smaller church shows
Yeah.
that, in small towns, and there's a ton of small towns around me. So when you have a singular, you have like three churches in the whole town, different denominations, everybody who goes to that church, all the women at least, are probably going to that craft show. And if
Yeah.
there's only 15, 20 vendors there, you have a really good shot of making sales. They're coming
Yeah.
to buy. I
Yeah,
think
Yeah.
because we're not going to leave without purchasing something.
it's
Like my church
something,
puts
right?
them on. Well, our local community center puts them on, I think, through our church. But then you're not going to walk through there and not buy something.
Yeah. They're going to buy something.
Yeah.
They're getting something.
I think that
Yeah.
that's something. I think that's something else. So, like you said, knowing your customer, and something I think that most of us already know is that the vast, vast majority of your customers are going to be women or their husbands that are with them, right? I mean,
Right.
husbands are generally saying, "Let's go to a craft show," or men on their own. But a bunch of them getting together. Let's go to the craft show. But those customers, the vast majority of them, what they're buying, they're gift givers, right? So
Yeah.
these are all people buying. So you have to think in your head, okay, so who are they buying gifts for? They're buying gifts. And I think that most of them are going there not necessarily with a person in mind that they're buying for. So you have to present that to them. Present to them something for a hairdresser, and they're like, "Oh, my hairdresser would love that." That's how you get them to buy. Or all the people, teachers, of course, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, things that people don't work about, people who work in the offices in schools, all those types of things. So getting your customer thinking, oh, she would love that, and
Yeah.
that's how you make the sales.
Yeah. I think like one that is hard to do, but one that is important to learn is like being realistic about how your booth is going to look
Yep.
next to, and your style of stuff is going to look next to other people's stuff. Because like I live in Nashville and a lot of these markets that happen, especially the big ones, like in Franklin and stuff, they are like high end and like kind of bougie. And so like I always tell people like go look at the pictures, like go look at what these people's booths look like because we looked at one, and like our stuff is kind of more like, I mean, we wrap our books in like craft paper, and we have like cute stuff like hanging out of it, but it looks very like DIY, and we love it. That's our style. But like we went and looked, and everything is like white and beige, and everything is like looks very high end, and we were like, no way. Like we are going to look jank next to these booths and nobody's going to buy our stuff. And like being able to look at that and just be like, those are not our people. Like those people are not going to like our stuff.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like that doesn't mean that we need to change who we are. That doesn't mean we need to change how we wrap our books. Like that just means that's not our fair. That's not our people. So stalk the page of the fair and make sure that even if it is targeted towards women, is it the style, is it the vibe, is it the aesthetic of your style of craft?
But I think along those same lines, I think you also have to say, hey, there are things that I can do because okay, so you can take your exact same product and you can put it on four mismatched tablecloths and three different types
Oh,
of
sure.
table.
Yeah.
And people are like, that's kind of junk. You know what I'm saying? But you can take that exact same product and put it on three tables that are, tables that you bought together specifically for your shows or the same size. They're all, with the nice fitted tablecloths, which are $12 on Amazon. It's not like you're paying a
Yes.
fortune for, you know what I'm saying? So, nice tablecloths, all the same color. I think that it's incredible. Me personally, I prefer the black tablecloths because they don't get, stains on
Yeah,
them
they don't get gross.
touching, right? And plus, it just makes your products kind of pop off them, right? Um,
Mhm.
so, but taking, and even doing something like, I mean, if you work with a plotter, cricut, silhouette, whatever, taking something basic like getting a nice sheet and putting your logo on it. I mean, it takes
Yeah.
you what, a couple hours and you have it forever, and hanging that on your table and making yourself look like a professional business. And and going into that, even doing something like, again, going on Amazon, you can get really nice like craft bags to put your stuff in, or like you said, something nice to wrap it, something so that your customer isn't just walking away with their stuff in their hand, but they're walking away. And I like what you said with wrapping it, because again, if those people are gift givers, you're giving it to them in a really nice
Ready to
wrap,
go.
yeah, ready to go. And that's something that they like, right? They're like, oh, this looks great. My friend's gonna like it even more because it's gift wrapped.
Right. Yeah, staging your booth can go a long way to making yours be the one that they want to go to, for
Yep.
sure.
Yep, and going back to what we're talking about as far as how you're setting your booth up. So something I learned actually on accident, I had gotten a really good deal on tables, on 4x2 folding tables that were really easy to pack in my car, right? And so I bought up a bunch of them. And that has been so beneficial to me because the 4x2s, most of your spots are 10 by 10 or 12 by 12, right? That's like the standard size you get. But what people don't realize is that when you have to account for the guy next to you, he might be putting his stuff right up against the very edge of his spot. And
So
if you're
annoying.
right, and if you want people to walk along yours, you need to move it in. But the 4x2s, it gives you the ability to really build unlimited setups. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
like you can have the 2x2 or the 4x4 and then a 2 going this way, and that builds this side 10. And it just really gives you that. And plus the being able to fold them and put them in your car. And that's something else that you got to think about is, transporting your stuff back and forth. I mean, oftentimes your car is parked way out here and you're get yourself a nice little cart, a little fold up cart that you can pile
Yes.
everything into, one trip in, one trip out.
Yeah. I love that you brought up the 4x2 folding tables because I just bought those exact ones on like Prime Day this year. The
You
ones that
know
like fold in
Yep,
half.
yep, that's what I have. Yep. And
I
and
just
and,
bought two of them.
and the thing about those is that you're not, you don't just use them just for craft fairs. They're perfect
Yeah.
for, get-togethers and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah.
It's really convenient to have.
I just bought them.
Mm.
Another thing I really like to have is those like they're always on sale at like Michael's and Hobby Lobby. I love the little 3-tiered rolling carts.
Yep.
I think those are a good addition to any booth of any kind because there's always something you can like put on there, even if it's just decor, and it can go like in front of your table, off to the side, and it just makes it look more like I feel like it just adds like a lot no matter where
Yep.
no matter where. Even if you don't have a space or anything you can display on it, I find it's a good place to store like my scissors and my tape and maybe like my little square reader, and I just like have it next to me, or like my cup or whatever, and I just like keep it with me, and I can always like throw it on its side and shove it in the car. I
Yep.
love bringing that thing with me.
I think that's something else is that, you know, some of the things that you need to bring to the fair with you. I mean, what things do you find are that you wouldn't be able to the square, right? That's one thing that you need to have it. So you're good. You want to have change with you because
Yeah.
someone's going to want to pay with a toy,
Someone's paying
right?
in
There's
cash.
always someone, but most people are going to be wanting to pay you, via either Apple Pay or something. You have to have the other options available, or
Yeah.
you're not gonna survive.
And you need to advertise that you take those because I don't know how many. I guess it's common knowledge now that everybody kind of does, but in my small town, about half of them don't. So
Yeah.
you walk up to them and you might have $10 in your wallet, but you want to buy something that's $20. I have to kind of like, hey, hi, I don't want to interrupt. I know you're with that customer, but do you take Square? Like, do
Right.
you have a card reader? And half the time they do, but they're not like they're not sitting it on the table saying like, hey, this is
Right.
the payment I take. And that's so important, especially for an introvert. Like, if I have to ask you, sometimes I'm not going to go out of
Just
my way
walk
to
You're
ask.
away.
not gonna do it. It means I am not purchasing from you.
But
Sorry,
I
your
think that
stuff's great.
that's also another thing that we should talk about is that pricing. So make your pricing known. Don't make people ask you how much something is because, like you, if I
I
see
won't.
something and it's got no price on it, and you're maybe if you're nobody's there, I'm going to ask you. But if there's too much going on, and I got people pulling at me trying to get to the next, I'm just going to walk away. But if I see your prices right there, clear, and this is what it is, then I'm going to grab it and I'm going to wait to pay you.
Yep. I know. Like I love to so Canva, everyone I love Canva. It's like my favorite. But you can actually create like free little websites on Canva, and it's so easy to do. And I love to put like my pricing structure on like a little Canva website, and then I just make a QR code and I have it all over my booth. So I'm just like pricing, pricing, and people can just and they can see it right there. And it's just like they can see it. That way, I'm not having to print out like this giant thing that has the pricing of everything, and I don't have to have every individual pricing. I think it's so much easier. I like doing it that way.
I think also, so speaking of that, I think that it's also important to have something at your booth. So you want to capture not just the people who buy from you, but you want to capture as many of those customers to remarket to in the future as you can, right? So even having like a QR code, scan this and join us on social media or whatever, so that people can just, I mean, these days it's so easy. You pop up your QR reader, scan it, and then it can bring you to the link tree that has, whatever on it, your TikTok,
Yeah.
your Facebook, wherever your presence is, or even your markets, or your Etsy shop, or whatever your market is that you have online, you can link all of that and have that all for future customers. So to put that not just in your booth, of course, so that people who aren't buying have that opportunity to revisit that later, but also
Yes.
putting it on those bags that you're sending home with people, or even on your packaging. So again, all of those customers who have found you at a show can then re-find you when they do love your product, right?
Whenever I am doing a craft show, I always have something free that people can download that adds them to my email list or my text list just for entering the booth. And
Yep.
I make it in Canva before the show. So it's always just something really easy. Like if I'm doing books with my friend, it's usually like a reading tracker or like, something that they can just download as a PDF. And
A
it makes
printable
them
bookmark.
join our text list or it makes them join our email list. And I
Mm,
love doing that because then just by being in the booth, they're getting value, but even if they don't buy anything at all. And then later in the week, I'll send out a text to everyone who joined the text list and I'll be like, loved meeting everyone this week. Here's 10% off or whatever. And I feel like
oh,
that goes such a long way. And you can do that with literally anything. Like here's an SVG cut file. Here's, a sewing pattern. Here's even if it's just like if you join our text list today, you get 10% off a
yeah.
future purchase. It could literally be anything. And it really helps a lot. And you can do that with QR code too.
Yep.
So that's like my favorite craft show tip.
Yeah,
It's
that
not
is
only
clever.
good to give customers that option to where they can go around and QR code you, but one of the things Sarah said, bring a friend. You need someone to stand there so you can walk around to the other markets and go follow
Mhm.
all of them, because when you start engaging with their stuff, they'll come back and they'll start engaging with your stuff.
Yeah,
I have
that's
a
so
friend.
smart.
This is where she owns. I mean, she's a social creature anyways. But she's made friends with all of these vendors, so as soon as something happens, they're all together in a group. I mean, you want that community, you follow them. Just start
Yeah,
interacting with their stuff, start commenting, tell them things look good. They'll see you,
100%.
they'll go do it to you, and then you've created this friendship.
that's so smart.
But I think that the key word that you used there was community. These people are not they're not your competition. This is
Yes.
your community of vendors who you're going to see at other shows. If you get in, if you get into this track, you're going to see these, people again, and you don't want them to be enemies. You want to be the friendly, everybody likes this booth, because they'll even tell customers, I mean, because you're probably not selling the same thing, so,
Yeah.
oh, you're
Mhm.
looking for that, she's got really nice ones.
Yeah. And I mean most of these craft fair organizers, they don't want a bunch of booths that have the same stuff anyway. So
Any good one.
very rarely are you going to have somebody else who's directly competing with you.
Right.
That's actually a really good point. Look for that when you guys are signing up for craft shows, because if they're not vetting that, you're going to end up at a craft show where like 50 people are selling crochet items.
Yep.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
just went to one at a school, and I think it had like 200 booths, but there were only maybe a variety of like 15 different kinds of crafts.
Yep.
It was just
Yeah.
everybody reselling the same thing over and over and
And
over.
that's usually a sign of a craft fair you probably don't want to do again.
Yeah.
Like if they're not vetting, sometimes I actually ask that question on the front end, like, is anyone else doing this thing? And if they're like, oh, I don't really know, or if they're like, well, I'd have to check, then I'm usually like, I'll get back to you. Because if they don't know, then it's probably, I mean, I'm echoing all of a sudden. Do you hear it? Do you hear it?
Nope.
Are they in the room?
Is it in the room with us? So scary. Okay, anyways. I lost my train of thought. That was so terrifying. Anyways, I hesitate to say don't do the craft fair if they don't vet it, but I would almost say be very hesitant to do it, maybe. I
Just
don't
make
know.
sure that the person that is running the craft fair is aware of what's going on in the craft fair.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
Well, and I think that,
a good sign of someone just being thrown a task and they have no idea what they're doing is, I don't know who's going. I don't know if there'll be power. I don't know if you'll have access to this. I don't know when lunch is. I don't know what our plans are. Like,
I don't know
you
if
need to stay
anyone
away
else
from
is
those.
doing this, if
I
anyone
don't
else
know how
has
big
it.
of a spot I'm giving you.
Yes. I don't know where your spot is. I don't know where load in is.
Yeah. Right. Something else that is often overlooked, when you're talking about using, a square reader or stuff like that, all that runs off of your phone. So you want to make sure that, you have a power bank with you, right? Something you can get them for $15, something to charge your phone if you need
Hmm.
to. Um, but that that you're already charged when you get there, so you're ready to go as soon as your customers start coming, and get there early. Don't I mean, I know
Because they
that's
will.
kind of a known, but you don't want to get there, and again, that's because it's also rude to the other vendors, and everybody, the more set up and ready you are to go with the minute the doors open, the better it is for everybody.
Yeah. And your customers will be getting there early.
Mhm.
Everyone always gets there early. So you may as well get there early.
So,
Yep.
do you guys recommend? I mean, I guess Laura, you do date with the book, so you don't necessarily craft during, but do you recommend crafting while you're there? Because I find that so cool. I'll like stop by someone who's crocheting and she'll put down her crochet and start talking to me. Like, I feel like that creates a little bit of a, I don't know, like
For
it just
something
feels
like
feels
that,
nice.
absolutely. I think that you're right. I think that that's something I was actually going to talk about too, because I think that would draw people to you, right? That would people, what are you doing? Can I see?
Yeah.
Um, and then I think that kind of goes along with something I want to talk about ways to draw people to your booth, right? Because there's things that you don't want to do. You don't want to have scents. You don't want to have music. You don't want to have things that offend other people or maybe even some customers. But things that you can do to draw crowds is to build height, right? So what I like to do, because I also need to conserve space in my vehicle, is I use the like the, what are they called, the, the wooden crates that you get at like Michael's, and then I can pack all my stuff in there, stack them in the car, and then what I do is I stack them on top of each other and build
Ah,
my display moving up, so that
That's cool.
people, yeah, so people not only in this aisle can see me, but people over here. And then I'll put like brightly colored stuff or really great fonts that I know are customer favorites, things that draw people. This people say, same thing with the crocheting. People say, what's that? Let me come over and take a closer look. More people that are in front of your booth, the more people it's going to draw. That's just how crowds work.
Even with like Justy, you were talking about doing stuff, but like even when we do the book stuff at a craft fair, like we will bring whatever book we're reading and just like have it and be
Oh,
like reading it or whatever. Because then, like, I mean, not reading it, we're like, don't come talk to me because I'm reading, but like just kind of like casually having it. Because then people will come up and be like, oh, you're reading that book? Because people always want to talk about what book they're reading. And I'm like, are you reading that? What do you think of it so far? And I'll be like, oh, well, let's talk about it. Because everybody wants to talk about what they're currently reading. And we have gotten so many customers and just people in our book community that way, because it's like, well, if you like that, then you got to read this. And then we'll be like, well, if you liked this, you got to look at this one. And then we'll just be like, it's very organic that way. So I think involving them in whatever you're doing, it works regardless.
I think though, talking about, because what I thought you were going to initially ask, Jesse, when you asked about, actually crafting there, what I thought you were going to ask about was personalization on site. And so a lot of people will say that, and obviously that's a big seller, right? People love things that are personalized, but it's sometimes just so difficult to put yourself in that position where you're physically trying to make an item. Even if the item takes you 10 minutes to make, do you really have that 10 minutes while you have more customers? And how many customers are going to walk away because that 10 minutes they don't have time to wait, and they don't
yeah.
want to, when they're presented with the idea of, here, you can have something with your name on it, or you can have this generic one over here, they're not often going to buy that generic one if they don't, and sometimes they might not want to wait for the personalized one. So I think you might sometimes be putting customers off with that. So, but I will say this. I don't think that it's at all a bad idea to say, hey, we can personalize. And, again, here's our QR code. Here's where to find us. If you want really great personalized gifts, here's where you can find us.
So we tried this. My stepmom did these little band. I usually have one sitting here, but I don't. These little like banded hair. What are they called?
Like a headband.
Like,
Headband. Thank
yeah.
you.
These
And
banded
all
head things. What are they called? Headbands?
anyway, she makes them, and they're really just a strip of fabric that she just does a little end piece so it pinches, and they're real cute. But she was making them once for a craft fair, and I was like, I'm gonna bring some glitter vinyl, and I'm already like, I went and I cut the letters because I thought, oh, we're gonna make a killing off of selling these personalized.
Yeah.
We offered it, and I think one person accepted it all day, and
Oh.
she made bank, but no one really cared. They were like, that's cool. And then they wanted just, their 5 for 10 or whatever. They didn't really want to have to worry about the add on. So I think it's good to have it, but I don't know that it's necessary, especially if it's a heavy task.
I feel like the thing that would be that people love would be like if you had like a patch bar or something, where
Mm.
like if you make patches, like if you do embroidery and you had a bunch of patches where it's like you can choose up to 3 patches for this price, and we will put it on your thing that you bought. So like if you sell blank cosmetic pouches or whatever, and you can get up to 3 patches and we'll put them on for you or whatever. That would be a good personalization option to do at a craft fair, I feel like.
Have you guys
But
seen these ornament bars?
ornament bars, no.
No. So this is
Say more.
this has gotten to be a
Tell
big thing in the laser group. So what they are is they're taking and they're making, say you have 5 types of ornament, one with a truck on it, one with a tree on it, and one with stockings or whatever. You have your 5 ornaments, and then you have different things that you can, like if it's a truck, you can pop different things in the back of the truck. But then what they have, so you go through and you pick the things that you want, and then they have little pots of paint at the end and a little paintbrush and a little cello bag, or obviously,
you. Okay.
and then they also have the string, and they have little beads that you can put on it. So you pick all the little things that you want and you personalize it yourself.
That's
And
cute.
people are talking about making fortunes at shows selling it
I
this
thought you were about to say that they bring the laser. And I was like, what craft show has enough
No.
power to do the laser?
way.
And time. I was like, oh my gosh. No, I was about to be blown away by that. But no, that makes more sense.
I don't know anything about an ornament bar, but I do know that I get caught at the cookie bar every single time. You give me
Oh, yeah.
that deal where you're like, fill up this box for
Yeah.
$10. Yes,
Oh,
please. I will be. And
That does
there
me
won't
in
be a
every
space
time.
in there.
right.
Same. Same. Now I'm thinking about cookies.
you know,
Oh,
some,
man.
something else that's really important to have with you, and a lot of people overlook this, is a receipt book with duplicates. So the reason I say that is that a lot of your things are going to be done through Square, whatever, and that's going to give you an itemized of all of your sales at the end. So you know how much the sales tax is to remit and all of that, right? But for your cash sales, you need to have a record of those. You need to have a record of, you know, not only for the tax end of it, but for your inventory end of it, so that you know what has been sold and what hasn't. And I know that seems kind of 1980s to have a receipt book with duplicates, but you need to have those records.
Some people just like to have a receipt anyway, so that later they can be like, oh, that's where I bought that from. So,
Right.
if you
Yeah.
can get your logo on there, that
I
would be
was just
awesome.
going to say, and that's one more opportunity to remarket, right? And a half apron, super important. Just
Oh, yeah.
you can
Oh,
get
that's a
them
great
on,
idea.
again, you can get them on Amazon for $10, and I mean, then you put everything in it. You put your phone in it. You put your Square reader in. So no matter where you are in your booth talking to people, you always have everything there with you that you need, right? And also, nobody else can, just kind of grab it when they're walking by.
Well, they could, but it would be really personal and really awkward.
How I met my
That'd be a
husband.
whole other issue, actually, if someone did that.
I feel like that would be something my kids would do. They would think it was just like a trinket on the table and be like, how much is this? And they'd be like, that's my Square reader.
That's not for you. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but
Okay,
I
so
think
what do
I
we do? Sorry,
that's
go
okay.
ahead.
I was just gonna say that I think that you know getting into markets that oftentimes people are a little intimidated by it, but this is what I found from my 20 years of doing them. Um, you It's okay to make mistakes. I think it's kind of expected, and you learn from each one. Each show, you get better and better and better. And then, like I said initially, by the time you get into those big shows, you're ready. I mean, you're not gonna. You're at least you're not gonna make the newbie mistakes. You'll probably still make mistakes, but you're not gonna make those beginner mistakes. So
I haven't been doing them for too terribly long, only a couple years, but I will say that it's so much more casual than I expected it to be. Like I think I went into it being like, "Oh my gosh, everyone knows what they're doing except for me." And that is just not true. Like the vibe is casual. Like you can go and just have a good time, and usually the people around you do not care if you ask a stupid question. Like my first show, I asked so many questions of the people around me, and they are usually so willing to help.
yep.
So just go and obviously prepare. I mean, don't just go and plan to be unprepared, but don't stress yourself out thinking like you're not going to be ready. Like it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
I 100%. Out of all the shows I've ever been to, I have come across very, very few people who aren't just friendly. They're just helpful. It's
Yeah.
just, it's like a whole bunch of me's being around, just everyone just,
Yeah.
I
I
find even the ones that are like, this is my product and you're selling my product. If you bring in t-shirts, there's 10 different kinds of t-shirts to be sold. So people end up double selling them. I find if you're really sweet to them, even if you sell the same product, but like, hey, did you know that you can do this? And if you just present yourself as someone who's like helpful or, oh,
Yeah.
like, I'll look at that. Oh, did you know they've got those on sale down there? You could probably use those and put those on that. Like, even they will calm down a little bit because all that is like, their income at the end of the day is the reason they're there. So you have to
Yeah. They're just
understand
stressed.
that and just take it with a grain of salt when someone's a little bit hard to, I don't know, get into.
something else that you don't think about. Craft shows are a long day. You need to have food and water while you're there. Some
Snacks.
will have food and some will not, but, don't bring something and see how you feel 6 hours into it. You're not going to be the best with your customers at that point. And do not be scared to eat at your booth. People expect it. People expect you to sit down and eat a sandwich at noon at your booth. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Also, along those same lines, bring more product than you think you're going to sell.
Yes.
Because I feel like the worst thing is when your booth starts to look really like scraggly because like you're kind of running out of stuff. But
Right.
And price like it's homemade. I actually skipped up a bunch of stuff the other day. We went into a booth and it was an older couple and a lot of like their wooden stuff that she had put together and it was probably Dollar Tree stuff that she just stuck together. $3, $4. And like immediately my brain went, well, what's wrong with it? You know,
Yeah,
is
it's
it
yeah,
not
still
well
great.
made?
But
And
if
it
it
was
were
well made and it was
15,
great, but yeah.
I
yeah.
agree.
I
Yeah.
think that we should end with our like a freak story or like what's our like craziest craft fair experience.
Oh, well, I'll tell you about the time that a woman accidentally gave me an entire free sweatshirt.
Oh yes.
I was asking her what the price on it was, and then she was like, I don't know. I can't figure it out. And I was like, I'll come back later. It's no big deal. Big craft fair. So we put it back on the hanger. And then I came back later and she was like, I still don't know what I have that priced at. Why don't you just take it? And I'm like, well, let me give you some money for it. And she would not take money because she didn't have a little price tag on it. Don't be that guy. Just tell me it's $25. I'd have paid $25 for it.
That's fun.
I think I ended up having someone go buy something else from her and then like we gave her a tip because she did the square reader, so she couldn't stop us from giving her a tip.
Oh my word. That's crazy.
Yeah. But she was just so frazzled and she had so many customers and she didn't want to lie to me and then me find out later it was $15, but you told me 25. It's okay to pay more one day and not pay that much the next, especially if a
Yeah, like how
customer is
would you
saying,
ever
I
know?
want this.
But I think that's something else is your pricing. Like you said, had that same item, that same wooden item been 15, you would have thought it was a little bit more quality, right?
Yeah.
But for me personally, what I do with my pricing, this is not just at shows, it's across the board, is I use dynamic pricing. So, if I'm selling something for $5 and I sell out of every one of them within an hour, my price is too low. But if I'm selling it at 15 and I sell, two of them the whole show, then I'm too high. So don't be afraid to adjust your prices on day two if they didn't work out the way you expected day one.
Oh, yeah. You get the best deals on craft shows that very last day, those very last few hours, because people don't want to pack everything. So they'll start slashing those prices. I love that because I am a clearance girl. So
Same.
I'll tell you something that is a huge sales motivator is fear of missing out, right? So using a one-off product strategy is incredibly effective. By that I mean that, you know, Laura, you said to bring multiples of an item. Yes, make sure you have, especially things that you've sold in the past and you know that they're going to sell more than one. Make sure you have more, but don't put them all out. Don't put
Yeah.
three of a product out because the way people shop at craft fairs, they walk down the aisle and they're like, okay, so I want to look at all of this. I want to look at what everybody has. A lot of people I don't want to spend all my money on the first, if you're the first, literally the first table they see when they walk in, people might not want to spend that money right away. But if you have one single item out and they think I'm not trying to be tricky, but in their mind, their thought is that if I don't buy it now, the guy
Yeah.
behind me will, and then I can't come back for it. But if you have three of them out, they're like, well, no matter who buy it, I'm sure there'll be one left,
Yeah. That's smart.
okay, Laura, what's yours? What's your big scary craft fair moment?
Mine is actually we were doing a booth and this was like a freak thing, but somehow this like it was outdoor craft fair and our booth was set up like on top of like these wasps nest. And like the booth and like the booth next to ours somehow like what are the wasps that are like in the ground?
Are they
Oh, I know
hornets?
what you're talking about.
What are the ones that like they're in the ground?
Um,
Uh
I know what you're saying.
It's a specific kind of bee that lives in the ground. But
Yellow
anyways,
jackets, solitary wasps, and weevil
Aren't they
wasps.
how'd
like
you look that
super
up so fast?
aggressive?
I just
They
typed.
were that day. Anyways, they were in the ground. And so we all set up our little tents. And then all of a sudden it was like, where are all these bees coming from? And the person next to us and then us, we were like, these bees are like crazy, and they kept like getting all up in our tent. And then my son was with me, and he got stung on the hand. And then she had her son with her, and he got stung. And then the person next to us got stung, and then like she got stung. So we were like, we were dropping like flies. And then finally we like figured out, everyone started running fans under their tent, and it like kept them out of our tents. But it was insane. It was like we were fighting off wasps all day long. It was crazy. And we finally figured out is because we had all set up our tents right on top of these wasp nests or whatever, which was just like a freak thing, but nothing you could have planned for. But the people who organized the craft fair, they were awesome. They came around and they were like, they had like first aid kits for everybody, and they were like, they had planned, I don't know, they were great, but what were they going to do about it, you know? They didn't obviously map out the wasp nests when they planned out the plots. So
I'll take wasps, one spider, and I'm out. One baby spider, I'm gone.
there was definitely a point after my son got stung where I was like, if we don't sell something in the next 10 minutes, I'm out, packing up and leaving. But it was fine. That's my freak story.
I got nothing. I got nothing. Apparently,
Only good
I've gotten really lucky. I have
Yes.
never been attacked by wasps at a show. But I think that that's another thing to think about, indoor versus outdoor. And I don't want to say, that outdoor is, oh, it's all bad, because outdoor shows can be incredibly effective. I mean, that's where some of the biggest, best ones are at. But
Yes.
there are definitely challenges.
I
Wasps.
do bring a first aid kit now.
Oh, right. But
So how should
I think
sorry.
that goes back into what we were talking about having, organizers of these shows that are good at what they're doing. Not every organizer is going to have that first aid kit, right? That's genius.
Mhm.
That's somebody who has been doing this for a while and knows what they're doing.
So how should we handle hagglers? Because you always have some that are like, oh, well, will you take 3 of these for $10 or whatever? Do
Yeah.
we do you entertain those people? Do you just say, hey,
I
my
don't.
pricing's my pricing?
I just say our pricing's firm. Thank you though.
I think it depends on what day of the show it is, right? I mean, if you're in the last hour of the last day of the show, and someone's like, hey, can I get 3 for 10? And they're normally, would be 3 for 12. I might
Yeah.
just say, okay, sure, why not? Hey, that's our
I would
special.
I would honestly probably say, if you didn't want to do it, I would just say like our pricing's firm, but we do run sales sometimes. So here's how you can get on our email list, and you'll be the
Oh,
first to know when we run a sale.
that's very smart.
And then that way you can get them.
But that's something else that I actually plays into my pricing strategy. So something that I'm huge on shows is point of sale items. And by that I mean, so you have your anchor items, or you have your items that people come in and someone's going to spend $50 on this really intense tote bag that really is fantastic, right? But then once you've already got them, they're getting out their card, they're going to pay you. Then you have those $5 items, just like when you go to the grocery store and they have the gum and all that. That's a point of sale item. It's things that you just grab because you're already making the purchase, and that just ups your sale price, right? So
Yeah.
for me, what I do for so something that I'm big on for point of sale items is magnets. And so what I do for things like that is I do, whatever my pricing strategy is for that show. So say it's 2 for 10 or 3 for 12, but I always do that 3 for 12, because even if I'm not making anything on that last item, it's going to get me more of those 2 for 10 sales, because they feel like they're getting that benefit, that extra, you know what I'm saying? So it increases the amount of sales that I get. But even outside of that, just the thought of the point of sale items, super important, super important. Yeah, the person's already buying something. When you're at $50, what's $5 more, right? My niece would love that magnet.
I'm going to get slightly off topic here, but I have to say, yesterday, Laura invented a very, very, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. Laura invented a very, very cool product that we need to
On a
exist
live
on.
by accident.
So, you know the alphabet sets that are printed out, but like I'm talking about like the full color sublimation alphabet sets.
Yeah.
Those, but as a magnet set. Would that not be
Ooh,
the cutest little gift for like a kid or a family that has kids? They could put them on their
yeah.
fridge and someone could play with them. I was like, that is so cool. I need some.
That is genius. And you know what you could even do with that is you because a lot of
I
times
knew Sarah would make this better.
they have the extras with those often, right? So how fun would
The
that be
doodle.
for them to, spell out Merry Christmas and then put a little Santa hat over it, or throw those in
Yeah.
their set.
So cute.
Oh,
That's
that's genius. Oh,
I
we
love it.
should
I love it. I
that's
need some because
genius.
if you saw my fridge, it's like pictures from, well, it looks like that, really.
I was just when as soon
Popping
as you
off
said
of
that,
your
I said,
filing
"What's that
cabinet.
behind?"
Dusty, now that we're way off topic, is my hair robin today?
Your hair looks good. You do
I
have
was
a
thinking how
little
beautiful your
loose
hair
piece
looks
there.
today.
She's
Actually, it looks
she
really, really good.
we were talking, well, it's because like this is literally my hair and my face is so dry right now, and we were talking about how Robin from Sister Wives will curl her hair and then not brush it out at all, and then it's just like wah.
Just
And I
leaves
so
her
I'm always like, is it looking like Robin, or does it look like it looks like just, but anyways, I don't ever wear it curly anymore because it's short now, but my hair used to be very long, and then I chopped it all off.
How long did you get it? I got mine down to my butt, but I just chopped it a little bit.
It
Oh,
wasn't down to
your
my
hair
butt.
is long, Justy.
Yeah, well, it was past my booty, but you get your hair. Sorry, Nick. He's editing.
You get caught in your butt crack.
You get your hair caught in your butt crack. I don't like that. So I chopped it right above my
He's gonna use this clip. It's
booty.
gonna be like the promo for the episode, just out of spite. You know what? Actually, that was a really solid hour of talking about craft shows. So we talked about the kinds of craft shows to look for. We talked about big craft shows versus small craft shows. We talked about what to bring to craft shows. We talked about making friends with your neighbor. We talked about all other sundry sorts of things. So we hope you loved it. And we hope you'll join us back here next time because we're going to talk about other fun things. We don't know what those fun things are yet, but we can guarantee they will be fun. So until next time, this has been Sarah, Justy, and Laura, and the Craft Stash. The end. I made a jingle.
It's now the new jingle.
The Craft Stash.